My accident happened on August 27th, 1995. My brother and I had decided to go mountain biking down by the Bloomington Ferry Bridge. The trail wasn't difficult and I wasn't going fast. And we don't know exactly what happened, but I went over the handlebars and as soon as I hit the ground, I knew I had broken my neck.
Peter was pretty, wasn't responding very much, of course, and I think everybody had all of these questions of what does the future hold and what is it going to look like? And there wasn't any place to go to find out that information. I mean, who plans for a situation like this? You can't.
In ICU, I realized the full degree of my situation. The only thing that I could do was blink, so it was a very frustrating process and a feeling almost of claustrophobia, being trapped inside your own body where you can't move and you can't speak, and so in a sense your spirit is trapped and can't get out. When you're first injured, not only is it difficult because you're facing the physical and emotional trauma of the injury, but you're also cast into a new world that you understand very little about.
The first year was very hard. One of the visits that I had with Peter that to me really resonated is that it was the two of us talking, and he said, my life as it was is over, and I now have to begin a new life. And that just really hit home in that he was just verbalizing what he had been trying to rationalize for so long, and it was devastating to hear your friend have to say that.
Peter has gone about dealing with his illness in the exact way you would have expected if you knew him in a workplace. I mean, he has not changed who he is one bit. He has taken the same determination, the same hard work, and the same passion that he brought to everything. He brings it to the fund, and he's looking for a big solution, not, how do I do this or how do I do that? I mean, how do I solve this problem in a big way that helps people around me? And those are skills that he exhibited as a young man that made me and others notice him and give him a lot of opportunity, and those are the same skills that he's brought to the fund and to his life. It's inspiring. It's truly inspiring.
I grew up on a farm in rural Minnesota, and at the age of 5, my oldest sister was stricken with polio. And I observed as a young person all the friends and family and community that was supporting our family. And what was amazing to me is all the people that were willing to help us that I didn't even know. I'm now retired from U.S. Bank, and as a retiree, I have designated the Morton Cure Paralysis Fund as one of my recipients, to receive my United Way funds, because I have learned a lot about Peter, and his family and what they are trying to accomplish. It also started to answer some of those questions going back to when I was younger about, why it feels so good to be on the giving side of the equation. And the Morton story, is a very touching story about, two brothers out for a bike ride and something drastically goes wrong. We are now 20 years down the road, and my brother and I are working jointly with all of you to really find solutions to all these issues, and someday we hope to write a different ending to the story.
I can't say that there are many nonprofit organizations who can say 85 cents of every dollar that you donate will go into research. I mean, that's really high marks, and I'm really, really proud of that. The other thing that I love about MCPF is we're a seed organization.
Research is incredibly expensive, the people, the equipment, the reagents. And to really move it forward, you need large grants. You need large federal grants on the orders of millions of dollars. Now, the federal government will not risk that kind of money on an idea unless there's some evidence, some preliminary data to indicate that the idea is going to work. And that's perfectly understandable. That makes all the sense in the world. It's taxpayer money. Of course they have to guard it wisely. But it creates the problem that it can be very difficult to try a new creative direction, to take a conceptual leap. Because where are you going to get the money to do the experiment to prove that this is a worthwhile direction to move in? And that's where foundations like the Morton Fund come in. They solve that chicken and egg problem because they are willing to invest in creative ideas. They're willing to put up the money to get that pilot experiment done. And ideally, that pilot experiment can then be leveraged into the large federal grants that you really need. And in fact, the Morton Fund has had great success in that strategy over the last 20 years.
Because I think in 1995, that's 20 years ago, the wisdom was that there would never be a cure for spinal cord injury, that it was a problem that was simply too difficult to be solved. And even as little as 10 years ago, one of my very senior colleagues at a national meeting actually berated me for doing research in this area because he said, it's impossible, this can never be done, you're giving people false hope by saying you might be able to cure spinal cord injury.
The very first grant that I ever got as a graduate student back in Minnesota was from the Morton Fund. And looking back, I realized just how lucky I was, because the basic idea behind that grant was that alongside looking at the spinal cord tissue problems, we needed to be focusing on the molecular events inside the injured neurons. That's now a mainstream idea. That's now the core of the research in my lab. But at the time, it was contrary to the thinking in the field. And frankly, at the time, I'm not sure it was a fundable idea through most mechanisms. But what a stroke of luck that I happened to be at a place that could be supported by this local foundation that could take a risk on that idea and that could help get it launched. So the Morton Fund really did launch my career, and it really set me on a trajectory that landed me right where I am today.
The Morton Cure Paralysis Fund was very important because it helped the spinal cord injury field survive during the most critical period in the second decade. During this period of time, organizations like the Morton Cure Paralysis Fund really kept the field alive. And I really mean this because we went from probably about 50 laboratories doing spinal cord injury research to less than 20 laboratories doing active spinal cord injury research in the years that followed 2008. It took about 5 years for the recession to lift, and we're now reaching to some extent just to the period just before 2008, and we're now growing again. And this is coming just in time because I think the animal research has now led to clinical trials that are now showing regeneration for the very first time in humans.
Being in this chair sucks. I don't know how else to say it, but there's so much more than just the paralysis that makes a spinal cord injury so devastating, and there's so many secondary conditions that to me sometimes are even more difficult to deal with than the paralysis itself. And for somebody to find something that could maybe give me my bladder function back or my bowel function back, or allow my skin to feel again. I have no sensation below my armpits. That those in themselves would be astounding.
Hope is a very big word to describe, but it also drives you in a way. You know, you have hope, but then you can dream about things and you can shoot for certain goals and try to set stages for yourself. And then there's the thought of if you had too much hope and nothing comes to you, then then that can be a struggle in itself. But for me, hope brings light in my eyes.
For me, hope kind of, it lightens my heart. It gives me optimism for my future, that I might not be stuck in this chair for the next 10 years, or certainly not 20 years or whatever, that I'll be able to, you know, stand up at my girls' weddings instead of being stuck in this chair.
There's a lot of progress getting made, but with the new science and the new healthcare and the new genetics that we are working on, the kind of investment that this organization does in startup or early stage, that's what we need. And nobody's doing it with the kind of diversity and the kind of passion and the kind of skill sets that I think the Morton Cure does. And that's why we're there.
I believe the future holds a cure in the sense that we will restore more and more function. Every time we restore some bit of function, people say, we want more, and we will give them more. And this is what the research should be, and that is, the cure should not end. It should keep going.
A cure will come. There's no question of that. There are too many examples of successful nerve growth in nature for it not to happen. Different species can do this. Embryonic neurons can do this. It's a matter of time and it's a matter of effort until we figure out exactly how to do that in the human spinal cord. It's going to be discovery based on discovery, stacked on discovery. It's going to be research, and foundations like the Morton Fund have an enormous key role to play in that.
People sometimes compliment me on how well I've adjusted to the situation, and I appreciate that. But I've never accepted this situation as being okay. I've adjusted, but we do our work so that someday we can fix it.